Still connecting. Utsada, welcome to HinduLounge. today
Namaste.
is a great day, Utsada, and look who we have. We once again have Maya Durga with us. Hello, Maya. Namaste. And
Namaskar. Namaskar.
and
Namaskar.
she is eating sweets, I guess, because it's Diwali, right?
Yeah,
Yesterday was
she.
Diwali, and tomorrow is the Vikram Samvant New Year. And it is really, I mean, we are in the middle of an auspicious occasion. So that let me introduce our program to those who are joining us for the first time or have not joined us in recent times. So my name is Ajay Shah. I am the Executive Vice President of World Hindu Council of America, VHPA. And with me, it's Utsav Chakrabarti, and he is the executive director of Hindu Pact. And Hindu Pact is an initiative of World Hindu Council of America, and it comes live every week on Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern. And we talk about contemporary American Hindu issues every single week. And Utsav, before I introduce the topic, I want to introduce Maya Durga, your daughter, is about 11 months old, and she is a regular guest on our show, right? Take it away.
Thank you, Ajay Bhai. Namaste, everybody. This is our 29th Hindu Lounge. And Maya Durga, who is 11 and a half months old, almost a year old, has been of late a regular participant and a star host along with me. And the star part being her and me being the host part. Uh, so happy Diwali, everybody. And since I had sweets, I thought Maya is not allowed to have sweets yet. So she's having her fruits right now.
Oh, she's having fruits.
So,
Oh, she's not going to be happy when she sees the replay of this that she, on her first Diwali in her life, she was not eating sweets.
yeah, she's having sweet fruits. We'll
She's
explain
having
it
sweet
that
fruit.
way.
Okay. So we've been doing this show almost half her life, and
That's correct.
that's quite a so she's just a born star, and I want to welcome her, welcome you, and I want to wish everyone who is joining us today a very, very happy Diwali, a day late, but still a very happy Diwali. And for those of us who are celebrating the new year, I want to wish everyone a very happy new year tomorrow. Today is a gap day, so nothing gets celebrated today, but it's just an extended Diwali day. So it's a day of celebration anyway. So Diwali lasts 2 days, or the New Year celebration lasts 6 days instead of five. So once again, welcome everyone. And so that today we were talking about the topics for the day, right? And I said, okay, well, why don't we do a different kind of show today? We have, as Hindus, we have a lot of issues around the world, and we always talk about things that we need to do. And we say, okay, why don't we look back, reflect upon the year that was, and why don't we celebrate and count the accomplishments of the Hindus and see all the things that Hindus have accomplished, right? And there are quite a few accomplishments, and we need to at some point we need to take a step back and say, hey, all the work that all the Hindus across America and across the world are doing, what have we really accomplished? And so today, Utsoda, is a day of reflecting and celebrating the victory. Diwali, as you know, is victory of good over evil. And we as Hindus have had a lot of victories over the evil over the last 1 year. But Utsada, before I go to that, I want to play a Diwali message that is from our World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA, General Secretary. Uh, Sanjay Mehta, and Sanjay ji recorded this for a radio program. So that I'm going to share my screen and then let the video. It's maybe 30-second message, and I'm going to play that if you don't mind. So here's the recording on Diwali. Diwali wishes by Sanjay Mehta, who is the General Secretary of World Hindu Council of America. Utsuda, please let me know if the sound does not come through, because I think I'm sharing it with the sound. But if it doesn't come through, please let me know and I will replay it. I'll reshare and replay. No, hold on. Let me reshare this time with the computer sound, and I will be. Oh, you know what? My mistake. Shared with computer sound, and this time it should play with the computer sound. And let me know if you don't hear the sound. Let me rewind this.
Namaste, भाइयों और बहनों. We celebrate Diwali to mark Sri Ram's return to Ayodhya after the victory. We welcome and worship Sri Lakshmi Devi on this day. Sri Ram is an embodiment of Maryada Dharma, which means morality, duty, truthfulness, and justice. Sri Lakshmi is an embodiment of Sampannata, Laksh, Shubh, and Labh, which means prosperity, wealth, purposeful life, and well-being. When we have both Maryada and Sampannata in an individual's life, then Samaj or society prospers. When we have both wealth and dharma, then there is a horizontal growth of the society. Diwali is not just the festival of lights. It is the day of Sri Lakshmi Puja, Sri Lakshmi who is the manifestation of prosperity and peace for all. It is the day of remembering Sri Ram, who is the manifestation of duty and joy. So on this day, let's perform Lakshmi Puja for everyone's well-being and joy, everyone's Shubh and Labh. Jai Shri Ram and Shubh Diwali.
What a wonderful message, Utsuda. And once again, to all the people who are joining us, this is Hindu Lounge, and it's an initiative of World Hindu Council of America, and you are live with Utsav Chakrabarti and Ajay Shah, and that was a message from Sanjay Mehta, who is the General Secretary of World Hindu Council of America, VHPA. So that keeping with that theme, right? The biggest achievement of Hindus this year has been, and what I mean is last 12 months, has been the Bhumi Pujan of Sri Ram Janmabhoomi. So that it was after 462 years, once again, Hindus were able to reclaim the Ram temple, Sri Ram's birth temple that stood on the birthplace of Sri Ram. We were able to reclaim that land and do the groundbreaking ceremony or Bhumi Pujan, the worshipping of the land, to initiate the new construction. And there's so much emotions that ran through the hearts and of every Hindu around the world that it is indescribable. So many generations sacrificed their lives, but this year, finally, the Hindus achieved a victory over the evil that Babur was. It took generations, it took centuries, but we finally did it. Usada, give us the context, give us your views, and what went through your mind and your heart when the temple Bhumi Pujan was done.
Thank you, Ajay bhai. And you rightfully pointed out the Ram Janmabhoomi Bhumi Pujan in Ayodhya was, I must say, a event of the century, if I can put it that way, mildly, for the Hindu community around the world. What needs to be understood is that the place in Ayodhya, which is Ram Janmabhoomi, as most Hindus know it by, the birthplace of Lord Ram, that place is not just important to the billion Hindus around the world. It is also important culturally and theologically to almost half a billion Buddhists around the world in countries like Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Japan, South Korea, North Korea, and Mongolia. So, historically, Ayodhya is one of the most important places in the world for spiritually aligned people, dharmic community people from all over Asia, as well as for Hindus living in South America, Europe, Africa, and Americas, North America. For such a place to be actually colonized and symbolically enslaved for over 462 years was probably one of the worst human rights, uh, spiritual and religious rights violation in the last 400 years. But unfortunately, such is the nature of colonization, such is the nature of narratives built on the basis of colonizations, that for 400 years we Hindus did not have the right to even talk about it. And those who talked about it were given all sorts of fascist titles and delegitimized by the global media as well as by people who colonized us. So, for this to happen peacefully, for the Ram Janmabhoomi Bhumi Pujan to happen peacefully in today's time, with the support of major law abiding leadership of India, is one of the most important events. And I must give credit to everybody involved in this process. Especially, I must credit World Hindu Council of America for being a backbone of the support for this movement for the last 30 years. Globally, including in America, World Hindu Council of America was the voice for this epoch changing movement, and they did not diverge away from their goals for the last 30 years. I mean, there was a time when nobody would be even willing to understand or accept or even consider this as a solution, because it was just so hard and the colonization had happened so long. But full credits to World Hindu Council of America, full credits to the leadership of World Hindu Council of America, full credits to the leadership of the Hindutva movement, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad in India, to have not wavered from their goal, to have successfully and patiently gone through these decades and gone through it legally. Imagine this: any other religion would have responded in a far more aggressive way and taken back what was rightfully theirs for so many centuries. But the process that the Hindus took was patient, legal, following the law of the land. So I think the rebuilding of the Ram Janmabhoomi temple and the Bhumi Pujan that started it, is, in my opinion, one of the biggest events of the century. And that's why I think in this year, with all that is happening around us, that's a silver lining for our community.
And it really, the bringing down of the Barbie structure, it is not really a mosque because no prayer ever took place over there. Bringing down of the Barbie structure that stood at the as a sign of slavery was really no different than the colonial statues that were brought down in America and in UK and other places in the world. It's just that Hindus did it 30 years ago, and it's a landmark movement if you think about it, Utsoda, in the history of Hindus, because the uh, the Hindu outlook on the world changed dramatically after that. It is almost as if that was the real beginning of independence of Hindus after 700, after almost 700 years of, or 750 years, whatever, depending on how we count it, from the day that Islamic invasion in Sindh took place to Islamic rule ended, British rule started, and then 200 years or more of British rule. So about 1,000 years, give and take a few years, of outside rule on India, really. And then we had these governments in India which still had this slavish mentality. So if you count all of that, the true independence of day of India in some ways, and not, you know, and I'm Independence Day is not really a day; it is a process in my mind, and in that the really the biggest one of the big impetus obviously was 15th of August, but another landmark day of the in India's independence movement was actually December 6th, 1992, when the Babri structure came down. And then in that process, the again the Independence Day movement, if you think about it, continued, and the day the Bhumi Pujan was done for Sri Ram Janmabhoomi was yet another landmark in India's independence movement.
Correct. And I must reiterate, that's why I was reiterating, it's not just India. That's the part that is very important for people to understand. It's the entire continent of Asia, which is half of humanity. I mean, people in Japan feel connected to Ayodhya. People in South Korea, in the Koreas, both North and South. I mean, North Korea, we don't have much communication with people there, but people in Koreas believe that their civilization begins from Ayodhya.
Of course,
People
one of
in
their main clans is was a came from Ayodhya. I mean, the princess from Ayodhya actually married the
correct,
Korean
correct.
king.
And
Or
they historically have proved that it's
yes,
part of their nation's history.
right,
And
yes,
it's not taught in our history books, but it's taught in their history books.
yeah,
So it is fascinating. I mean, you go to Vietnam, you go to Cambodia, you go to Thailand, there are places named after Ayodhya in these countries. What are countries today? So Ayodhya is a civilizational, uh, uh, if I may use the, for people who understand, since we are doing this in the Western world, it's the civilizational Jerusalem for the dharmic communities, along with Varanasi. And so that is something that we have to, I'm using a comparison because our listeners are mostly sitting in Western countries, so they will identify more with the Western narratives that we have. So Ayodhya is that important to us. And and for us to not be able to even go and build a temple at the birthplace of Bhagwan Sri Ram was probably the biggest symbols of colonialism that was left over in the last 1,000 years. And therefore, I
so
think,
oh, sorry, please
no,
complete
no,
it.
please go ahead. Please
No,
go
no,
ahead.
no, please go ahead.
So I think it needs to be looked at in that perspective. And I think hopefully the younger generations to come will understand what it actually means. And I grew up in a time when this movement symbolized the reawakening of myself. Like, until this movement started, I did not know much. It inspired me to educate myself and be be making that effort to self-educate on our history, on our dharma, on our religious traditions and their past. So yeah, I think it triggered something in me. It triggered something in millions of people around the world. And I think it's going to serve as an inspiration for an entire generation that is coming, and many more to come.
So that I want to actually extend that and say that the movement actually in New York on the day of Bhumi Pujan, there were some Hindus who purchased electronic billboards, and there was a movement to go to the management of all the ad agencies and tell them to not put up the pictures. Now these are the billboards that people rent all the time. These are building the electronic billboards that cover the entire building in Manhattan, and you put these electronic billboards, and people who are just Hinduphobes, for lack of better word, just went to the ad agencies and the owners of the buildings, and they made a big issue out of it and saying, do not display these advertisements. Now they were successful in stopping the advertisements from a couple of places, but still, I'm glad to say that a win for Hindus was that we were able to have a grand celebration in middle of Manhattan, and we were able to have the electronic billboard display in several places. So again, as we list the wins of the year 2020, and we say that here are the places where Hindus won, and Hindus did a great contributed tremendously. One significant place was in Manhattan, where the Hinduphobes were not able to prevail, and we were able to display the boards, and there were hundreds of people, probably thousands of people in Manhattan celebrating Shri Ram Janmabhoomi Bhumi Pujan. So that any comments before I move on to the next topic?
Ajay bhai, I wanted to add this point here that you know it needs to be understood who are the people who are opposing it. And also, what needs to be understood is that those people are the ones that were very happy to perpetuate this colonialism on our people. They are the people who believe that they're maintaining the status quo of colonialism in the Indian subcontinent was the right thing to do. They were the collaborators with the Islamists. They were the collaborators with the British. So these are the future ideological inheritors of those same people, and they, in my opinion, are the Quislings. They are the Quislings of the world who enabled jihadists taking over big sections of the world. They are the Quislings who. So it is the modern. It is the modern inheritors of those people, and we must understand and expose their goals, because it is not just that they want to oppose a billboard in New York City. They want to oppose the resurgence of a civilization. And the way things are moving right now, the way the Hindus are getting enlightened, these people are desperate to contain it, because they know that once this momentum begins, there is no looking back. We would be probably one of the first civilizations that will revive itself out after 1,000 years of enslavement. And that is not a status quoist position at all.
So the 1992 showed that we have arrived, we have won, and today we are saying today. I don't want to. All I'm going to say today is a day we are celebrating the victory of good over evil, and I don't want to. We can all the forces that you mentioned. I mean, we've been talking about it for months, right? And it doesn't matter who it is on the other side. All we're going to say is that those who are on the side of adharma have lost the battle every single time when they have fought the forces of dharma. And today we have, our generation has played a small role in this ongoing battle that has been going on for thousands of years, and this is our small contribution to this ongoing battle. So that let me just move on and talk about some other issues. So I'm going to, I Thara Narsimanji, who has been a regular listener and to our program, and she has pointed out several achievements of Hindus. And Tharaji is president of Hindus of Houston. She has her own radio show in Houston for several years, and she was also part of Reflections at 50. And and she points out that Hindus united, and so according to her, the Hindus united and celebrated 50 years of Reflections at Within Council of America (VHPA), and that was a huge achievement. I think sometimes we overlook the fact that our own organization has been around in US for 50 years, and we have made contributions to this society. And Taraji points out that COVID-19 closed many temple visits all over the world, but temples too care to prevent the spread of the pandemic. And we so Hindu, not only that, Taraji, I mean, if you look at the achievement of the Seva achievement, I think we'll do a whole show towards the end of the year just on the contribution of in the Seva arena, all the Seva contributions that Hindus have done in America, American Hindus have done in America and outside America. The contribution of Hindu Americans is one of the shows that we'll do towards the end of the year. It's really heartening to see that Hindus have played a tremendous amount of role, not just in COVID-19 relief, but in all aspects of life. I want to and even when we quickly pivoted by going to temples to taking all the temple pujas online, and we really, in many ways, we overcame the challenges that were posed by COVID-19. And Taraji points out that um, a, an election of a Hindu descendant, a descent as a VP elect in US. Taraji, I respectfully submit that it would have been even nicer if if Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, would have said that she was she is still a practicing Hindu. I understand that she has never claimed that, but uh, but you are accurate in saying that she is of Hindu descent. So that I think Taraji has made some really good points, and they are worth recognizing before we move to the next topic. So please go ahead.
So I do believe that, in under the situation that has come out of the COVID crisis, the role of temples has been quite commendable. The fact that they have not opened up or made it mandatory for their so-called followers to come to the temple, otherwise divinity will be unhappy somehow, is is a much more rational way of thinking, and I think that has been our strength. The fact that we are a decentralized uh, belief system, if I can call it, helps people to pursue spirituality from the confines of their segregate, being secluded, and we don't really need a congregation uh, and throwing holy water on people to make our divinity felt and appease whatever one believes is up or down there. So I think that has been our strength, and I think the fact that all temples have taken it upon themselves to reduce social interaction and go online has been a wonderful initiative from our community. The fact that they have done food drives, and the fact that they have done, I mean, I in my area, in Washington DC area, I personally know about 12 people who go around distributing food to people who can't, who are in the high risk segment. And actually, I might sometimes I get the leftover foods also. So uh, I mean, this is something that is very commendable. I think everybody should do it, and I think people have risen to the occasion, and it is times like these when the ethical values that we carry should come out. This is no, this is probably the best time to show it.
Yep. So let me go to some of the other wins that we have had. So that this year,
Mhm.
as and I'll this year, New York State Assembly, was it State Senate? I think
State
uh,
Senate, correct.
State Senate passed a resolution that that said that a swastika should be considered a symbol of hate. Now, Hindu Pact and American Hindus Against Defamation, the two of the initiatives of World Hindu Council of America, took a lead. Several of the other Hindu organizations were very active. That's HAF and Kona and Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh and other components of World Hindu Council of America. All of us came together and we said that there needs to be an education that Hakenkreuz, which is the cross, which is the crooked cross, is not the same as swastika, which is a symbol that is revered by multiple civilizations through last 7,000 to 8,000 years, not just in India but in Native American cultures, in South American cultures, in African cultures, in other Asian cultures. Swastika is a revered symbol, and just because Hitler appropriated this symbol and used it in an abusive way does not erase the thousands of years of significance that this symbol had. And we were able to not just put a stop to this particular resolution from going forward, but we were also able to present this particular, and let me just share the screen, this particular brochure that was produced by AJC and World in the VHPA, or World in the Council of America. And we were able to show that, look, I mean, even the rational Jewish organizations have agreed that there is a difference between the swastika and the crooked cross as it is. And this particular victory of Hindus is worth celebrating, because I think this is the first time in last several years in America that Hindus were able to actually come out and say, we are going to come and defend our sacred symbol in a united way. Uh, and there was a fallout, right? There was a few weeks later, a few couple of months later, or 3 or 4 months later, I would think, there was a town called Swastika, New York, and someone was passing by, and they noticed the name of the town, and they told the town to change the name, which was there for a couple of hundred years, and said, "Well, this swastika is offensive, and you should be changing the name." The city council or the town council met for about 5 minutes and said that this is not the crooked cross that or and it is a swastika, which is a symbol of goodness, and we are not going to change the name. So I think the delinking of swastika from the and Hitler, by the way, never used the word swastika. So this delinking of the sacred Hindu symbol swastika from the symbol that Hitler had used was a major achievement for Hindus in America, and perhaps Hindus around the world, because this kind of myth that swastika was, Hitler used swastika, and now this sacred symbol should never be used again. That so the myth and the fallout from the myth have both been in many ways defeated. Now it is possible that this particular legislation may come up again, but at least we have now shown that in America there's increased awareness among Hindus that we need to stand up for our sacred symbols. And to me, Soda, that is a big win, that the Hindu society in America, the American Hindus, have now taken charge. Your comments?
Well, I think the fact that AJC, which is probably the largest non-political Jewish organizations in America, uh, was already on our side and had worked with us in the past, was a help. I mean, the fact that Jewish organizations have been very eagerly talking about delinking the Haken cross from the swastika was a good thing, and that really made our work much easier. So I must thank all the Jewish groups that actually have taken the time, and despite the tragedy that they have suffered in their previous generation, that so strongly links to the symbol of the Haken cross, they have been rational and they have been thoughtful enough to actually look at history and see the difference. So that credit we must give to the Jewish community, largely to the Jewish community. What was ironic was that the maximum amount of activism against the swastika on the Twitter and social media was actually done by Muslim Brotherhood links Islamic groups, who, by the way, also hate the Jews. so that's the irony, and that's something I don't want to miss out, because we need to understand the larger geopolitical background of these kinds of activism that comes on social media and where it gets inspired from. But I think this is a small step in the right direction. There is nothing that beats education and knowledge. We all come with baggages of our own, and these baggages are sometimes historical trauma based baggages, and sometimes these are threat perceptions that linger on beyond generations. And the more we communicate, the more we educate, the more we will get rational people to think about it. Some may change their opinion, some may be too ingrained in their own narratives to even think about changing their opinion. But as long as we have education and facts on our side, we can always be civil and communicate in a far more rational way. And I think we have to continue to do that. This is just the beginning, and each step we have to do that. And we cannot hide, we cannot stop ourselves from talking about issues that are controversial, because the world changes with people who talk about issues that bring change. Status quoist will never change the world.
Right. So that is let's we have a lot of victories. So let's move on to the next one, and this is the one that should not escape anyone, and that is the one where you played a role, and I want to if I can find it, I think that I don't see that picture, but I'm sure you can talk about. Oh, it's there. It is. let me share this. And you played a role in it, and so did several of the other Hindus played a role in it, and that was um, the the Kashmir Balidan Divas, right? And maybe uh, maybe you want to talk about it. So I don't know if you how much of direct role you played, or you were you were just part of the group that that was a keen observer of this event. So I leave it to you to describe, because I certainly am not in Washington D.C., but every year the Kashmir Balidan Divas, or Kashmir Genocide Day, is observed, and it was observed this time in Washington D.C. And as I said, I don't know how deeply you are involved and not involved in all of that. So maybe, but at least I know that this day was celebrated by Hindus, by Hindus in Washington D.C. in a major way. So let me put up this picture, and maybe you can talk about it a little bit. So here is a picture of what was going around in Washington D.C. on the Kashmir Balidan Divas, or Kashmir Genocide Day, or Kashmir Sacrifice Day, whichever way you want to call it.
Correct. So, I did not play a very significant role in it. I was just one of the people who happened to see this. I don't know the name of the person or the organization that organized it. It is, I'm pretty sure it's from among the Kashmiri groups, that one of the Kashmiri groups in Washington, D.C. area, which did it. I just thought it was very fascinating to see, and very beautifully done, that they were so forward looking, and they were so they aggressively presented the narrative that the genocide they have been facing for the last many centuries in Kashmir. So I don't know the person who did it. I believe it's one of the Kashmiri organizations from here. uh, but I was there amongst many other Hindu American individuals who was there, who did participate in the protest. And I think it was very enlightening. I took some of these pictures, and I thought it was it created a lot of ripple on the social media. And nowadays, the social media being the eighth column of information distribution, as it has become, makes a lot of difference. I mean, today social media is what the radio used to be in the 1940s and 30s. A
It was
mind.
very well done, and there are a lot of there are a lot of Kashmiri Hindus, as we all know, had to leave their homes and become refugees in India and overseas, because they were driven out in the late 80s, early 90s, and a lot of them were killed by the terrorists, Islamic terrorists, and they had to leave their homeland where they were, they'd lived for thousands and thousands of years, and now they have become refugees. And there's a significant number of Kashmiri Hindu refugees in America, and there are several organizations. And also, that if we ever find out who did this, we should probably invite them as special guests on the show, because we need to support the Hindus who have been rendered homeless, essentially, as part of the as part of the uh, ethnic cleansing, if you will. I mean, there's really no better word to describe what happened to Hindus in Kashmir than genocide or ethnic cleansing. The other bit of good news is that for the first time in several decades, I would say 60 years of Indian independence, the government in India, and we talk about India because it is our Dharma Bhumi, government in India was able to say that, hey, the past was able to pass the legislation, rather, and say that Kashmir is now formally integral part of India. It has always been integral part of India for thousands of years. But when the constitution, when due to, I guess, for the lack of better word, because stupidity of the politicians who ruled in the early decade or 5 years of India, Kashmir was granted an exception, and they had their own constitution, and they had their own, they had their own flag. At one time, they actually had their own president and prime minister. We got rid of that decades ago, but the flag and the constitution and all the other discriminatory laws against people who were Hindus and against people who did not who did not belong to Kashmir, belong to other parts of India. Those kind of discriminatory laws, and again, there were some really horrendous laws. I mean, a Dalit would be qualified only for sweeping jobs, and the gender equality was not recognized as it was in rest of India. So all of these laws, the government of India got rid of these discriminatory laws. And I think when we're talking about victory of good versus evil, that is another win that Hindus had in last year and a half, where we are actually making strides in unifying our dharma bhumi, especially the part of dharma bhumi which where so many spiritual things have happened. I mean, word Kashmir itself is attributed to Kashyap Muni, one of the sages, preeminent sages of Hindu dharma. And from land of these rishis, to be a place where Hindus are ethnically erased and driven out and killed in genocide, that itself to me is a big victory. And so, that any comments?
Well, I always believe that the people in Jammu and Kashmir deserved better. They always and they have had 60, 70 years to work with the opposition that was there, but there was no chance of peace unless we had fully done what was done last year, which is the removal of Article 370. And I think the only way to bring peace in Jammu and Kashmir is to integrate its people, its geography, including the geography that is currently part of Pakistan, which Pakistan has taken over, and also the part that China occupies. So I think the best way to move forward is to make sure that people in Jammu and Kashmir are united geographically, socially, and spiritually with their ancient Kashmiri traditions. And we all should work towards uniting them by making sure that Kashmir is whole again as integral part of India. The Pakistan occupied Kashmir, the Chinese occupied Kashmir, and Ladakh regions has to be returned back to Jammu and Kashmir. And their ancient 7,000-year-old dharmic tradition revived in its full uh, excellence to bring them their civilizational identity back. It's important,
Yeah.
for too long we have not given attention to that.
So that we are celebrating the victory, and we will have a lot of time to talk about what we are going to do in future. But I am just happy. I'm really happy that at least one step has been taken to reunify Bharat Mata. One more step towards Akhanda Bharat Mata, Akhanda Bharat, which is undivided, indivisible Bharat. And this is an important, a significant step, where our Dharma Bhumi is someday will be made whole again. But this was an important step in that direction. And there are always challenges. There are always times which are difficult. There are always times that are, that we will face adversities. But suffice it to say that we made a significant gain this year in having a victory over the evil. Well, so that I want to bring your attention to a really a resolution that was eye-opening in the city of Redmond, Washington this year. And this was the resolution against a really small Hindu organization called APPWW. And this is an organization that seeks to highlight the persecuted minorities around the world and give them a platform. And so this organization in Redmond put up a small program where they invited people who were persecuted and who were minorities in several of the countries in Indian subcontinent. And they included the Balochi minorities, and they included the minorities who were from Bangladesh, and minorities who were from Afghanistan, and all these places. And they put up a program, and that really uh, upset a lot of people who were Hinduphobic, and they put up a resolution in the Redmond City Council, and they by name, uh, uh, and it's highly unusual. I mean, people put up all kinds of programs. I mean, we have First Amendment, we have freedom of speech. People put up programs, and but it really, really upset some people in Redmond, Washington, that these kinds of atrocities against minorities in Indian subcontinents were being highlighted, and they garnered 140 organizations and put up a resolution in Redmond City Council to, by name, condemn this organization called APPWW. Now, a lot of Hindus, saw it for what it was. They banded together, and this particular resolution Sada was defeated. And without, in interest of time, we have done a whole show on this. So without going into too many details, suffice it to say that if I were to make a list of the wins of Hindus, or wins of dharma against adharma, or good over evil, I think the defeat of anti APPWW uh, resolution in Redmond, Washington City Council should be considered one of them. What do you think?
I think Ajay, it's sorry, I switched my sound off, so every time you finish the comment, it takes me like 5 seconds to restart my sound. So my apologies. I think I think that see this is just the beginning, and there will be multiple resolutions coming. I mean, as we come of age as a socio-political, geopolitical entity, the Hindu community will continue to face these kinds of strong Hindu-phobic, Hindu-hateful resolutions. But for what happened in Redmond, Washington, to be able to fight back and actually defeat such a resolution is a very positive step, and it sets the template for more such counter resolution movements, where we not just use the opportunity to educate people, but also actually make a difference politically and defeat something that is hateful and directed against our community and our future generations, more importantly in America. So I think that's a wonderful template, and I think more power to the people who did it, more power to other organizations who emulate the people who did it. So I think this is a wonderful step.
And it's along the same lines. I mean, I think one thing that we need to also celebrate is the fact that a lot of Hindu Americans, or American Hindus rather, got elected to various offices, and many more actually ran. And that goes really well with what you just said, that this is a community in America that is coming of age. And in every aspect, every facet, not just in medicine and engineering as it's traditionally considered, but in every aspect of American lives, whether it's in academics, whether it is in, as Taraji pointed out in the chat, it's Ayurveda, whether it's yoga, whether it's meditation, whether it is, whether it is, public service. In every aspect of American life, Hindus are making a stride, and that is a positive achievement for Hindus in America. And it reminds me of the Threads conference that we did last year in November. And it's, again, it's within last year, where we highlighted, and there were 9 different streams, and we highlighted the achievements of Hindus in America in every aspect, starting from art and culture to entrepreneurship to business, medicine and yoga, to academics, and to you name it, every single field, and public service in all these fields. And it's really heartening to see that Hindus, because of their, what we have, the way we have been, uh, what our dharma teaches us, to be open to education, be open minded, be accepting of others, be always open to progressing the knowledge, these things. And once, now that we have truly are becoming independent in every sense of the word, we have now started contributing significantly in every country we are. And I think that, to me, is, in America you can now see that. And then we did mini threads conference as part of Reflections at 50. And it's really, i I take an example, Sudha, of a, a um, high school sophomore who is leading the effort of drug-free school. Okay, so it's not just Hindus who have who have gotten big degrees and who are teaching or who are running Googles and all that, but a college sophomore who is actually fighting for fighting against drugs in high school. And uh, I think that is these are the kinds of achievements that all the Hindus can be really proud of. And I think that that is going to benefit. I see that Maya joined us again, so I think that's something that's going to help her generation.
Yeah, Ajay bhai, Maya is the future generation for us in America, and I think she's way smarter than I am, so I'm less worried about about our future there. Yeah, she's back. She came at the right time.
She came at the right time. I think she's ready to eat some Diwali sweets, though.
I think she's going to continue eating the fruits. It's easy to give her the sweet because she would love it, but I don't want to spoil her health. I think
I, what Bengali doesn't eat sweets? I mean, come on.
a Bengali who is less than a year old.
So let me come to this. There was a loss. There's another win for us, and I'm that was the lawsuit that state of California filed against Cisco,
Correct.
and of course we are not legal experts, and I am not but all the indications are that this is a lawsuit that was but it was a test lawsuit in many ways, and state of California accused Cisco of some of the employees at Cisco, and Cisco itself was systematically discriminating against against people based on Hindus who are discriminating based on caste. And I think this caste-based discrimination is something that is yet another way, of beating up Hindus in America. I have lived in America long enough so that I can tell you that 99.99% of Hindus in America don't care who the person's caste is. Okay, they treat everyone, Hindus, non-Hindus, language barriers, regional barriers, caste barriers do not exist in America. And these politically active groups like Equality Labs, they come about and they're trying to basically say that Hindus have this caste system that is carried over from India. And the reason so that they're doing this is so that the Hindus would come out and say, I am not a Hindu. So basically, their goal is not to fight casteism. No, we are all for equality. None of us wants discrimination of any kind. None of us really care what caste they belong to, the other person belongs to. Or second and third generation and fourth generation Hindus don't even know what caste they themselves belong to. And to introduce this division in the Hindu society, and then based on this division, for Hindus to come and self de-identify themselves as Hindus is ultimate goal of these groups, and they're well funded by all anti-Hindu forces together, and they mounted this challenge against Cisco. They withdrew the lawsuit, and that to me is a win. So that to me is a win, because they this is the kind of uh, you know this is taking away the Hindu identity attempt is not going to succeed in long term.
So the thing is that we need to know, first of all, I give full credits to the Hindu American community, especially in California, for defeating and making sure that the lawsuit that was completely frivolous to begin with is withdrawn. But more importantly, it is important for the Hindu community to drive home 2 points. Number one, that the so-called caste system is not of Hindu origin. It comes from the colonial times. The word caste is a Portuguese word from the word casta. Number two, historical discrimination amongst humans is well documented. And slavery amongst humans is also well documented. For 99% of human history, slavery has been sanctioned by Islam and Christianity. Hindus did not sanction slavery. But that does not defeat the fact that every society, including Hindu society, had discrimination historically. And that has to be acknowledged, that has to be removed. And that is what Hindus have done over the last 200 years. Movement after movement after movement has come up to bring about socio-political equality and economic equity amongst the people. And I think Hindus have been not been able to drive home that fact successfully. What is often used by these anti-Hindu groups in America is that lack of knowledge and understanding about Hindu Dharma, which squarely falls on our shoulders because we have failed in the past. But that is changing. And the defeat of the Cisco lawsuit is that's why a big victory. We have been able to educate with our minimal resources. We don't have institutions that fund us to do this work, but we have been able to do it in our small little ways. And this defeat is perfect example of that. But these forces will keep coming back at us. They will keep targeting our kids, Hindu American kids, for disinformation, for hateful propaganda, and they might succeed taking away some of them. So it is all the more important that we don't stop at this success. We go out and educate people. We highlight the fact that this is something that is there in every community, including Islam and Christianity, and we need to work together to defeat it. And Hindus are probably the best position to educate others on how to defeat it.
So that as we come towards the end of the program, I want to talk about the Hindu phobe of the week. And the reason I want to bring this up is because while we were doing this show, I got a message, a text message from Amitabh Mittal, who is the Joint General Secretary of World Hindu Council of America. And he sent me something that fits right in with what we were just talking about. So I bring this up to you, and this is something that we anticipated going in, and now more and more of this is going to happen, is exactly along the line of what we talked about. So, as you know, the tentatively president-elected Biden has created a COVID-19 task force, and look what is happening in that task force. So, this is an Indian doctor who has been, who is part of the COVID-19 team that Biden has, and her name, look, she's already not using Indian name, but her last name, Gundar, has attracted a storm of criticism on Twitter for retaining her surname, which is the name of a powerful caste in southern India. So that what more Hindu phobic thing can you think of? Uh, so you now want people to dump their last names. They've already dumped their first names to fit into a society. Now they want to dump their Indian last names, and basically, and she is, her Tamil heritage and things like that. So you can see that. So that I call this Hindu phobic, because when was the last time someone said that dump the last name Khwaja, or dump the other noble last name that goes to a Christian heritage of nobility? When has anyone ever said that take away one something or the other from your last name? So why so I mean, what more Hindu phobic can we be? And I think it is incumbent upon all the Democrats who supported Vice President Biden and Senator Harris and got them elected to now stand up and say that this is exactly the kind of Hindu phobia that they're not going to stand for and they're not going to tolerate. Again, none of us is against equality. We are all for equality. We are all against discrimination of any kind. But Utsoda, for someone to come and make this a caste issue because someone is using a certain last name that they've used in their family for hundreds of years, thousands of years, to me, that is Hindu phobic if it is done only to Hindus. If they're going to do this, let us make a list of all the names in Indian subcontinent, in European continent, in other parts of the world, and let's start listing every single last name and say these are the last names that are not going to be, that people have to disown.
Okay, so let me interject quickly and say, I mean, one of the bombers for the 9/11 attacks had the name Muhammad. So I think we should start a movement along the same lines and call people to get rid of the names Muhammad all over the world, and basically uh, criminalize that name
Right. So I
along
don't
these
want to go
lines.
there. I don't want to take the name of a, of any religious,
So
any
I'm just saying this because
religious
this is
figure.
exactly the kind of,
Be as it may,
yeah.
let's just stick to the caste name. Let us not take the names of Vishnu or Muhammad or any of that. Let's not go there. Let us just talk about the names of the caste, because this is what it is. So let's talk about all the people who have certain caste name, and let's not worry about the
No,
prophets
but,
or
but by
gods of
limiting
different
yourself
religions.
to identifying a caste name, you have already given in to their narrative. Just by saying that you are going to limit yourself in conversation.
Yeah.
So what I am saying is that we need to broaden the conversation to include
Well,
names in the first place and the historicity attached to those names. And if we are going to start canceling names because
we're
people,
only talking about last name, Utsoda.
we
Let's not
can
go with it.
cancel
Let's
every
not go to
third
the
name
first name.
in South America because they're attached to a conquistador who.
So that let's not go to the first name. Let's just stick to the last names.
So if we only stick to the last name, by the way, what I named was is also a last name in
I
most.
understand. I understand. As I
So
said, there is a.
I know
Let's
you will
talk
get a
about the.
lot of flack from
No,
a lot of
I don't
people.
want to. I think that that is a broader conversation we can have some other time. I just want to stick to names like Khwaja and some of the other names that are out there, which clearly indicates, or Mir or Khwaja, they are clearly indicative of a certain profession-based things, and some of the professions considered to be more revered than the others, and this is
I
if you
mean, the last name,
and you talk
last
about the,
name, last name Fernandez, for example,
yeah.
is connected to conquistadors who killed people all over the world.
Yeah.
Now, should we stop using the asking people who have the last name Hernandez or Fernandez or Smith or Khan? Genghis Khan killed lots of people around the world. So everybody who is a Khan should be cancelled and criminalized.
Exactly.
So let's take a step back, and I think we need to explain this in this narrative, because that is the only way people who are doing this will understand what this means. If we do not do that, then we will always be at the back foot, and we will continue to see headlines like these that you just showed, and we will never be able to educate people in terms of bringing them the social relevance of what they're doing, and the futility of it.
So that I really think that this is incumbent upon all the people uh, who uh, who got the Democratic ticket elected. It is up to them to now point these out, because I think they are in a power position to have an influence on Vice President Biden. Now, it is not to say that just because there is something in in Twitter, it's going to take hold or any of that. But this is exactly the kind of things that happened to Sonal Shah when she was being considered for a cabinet position in Obama administration at one time. A horde of people who were Hinduphobic came and attacked her, and this is no different.
Correct. And I think most people here know what we have to do. Most people who are support, I mean, majority of the Hindu Americans probably who are citizens here and who vote probably voted for the Democratic ticket based on past records. Uh, it is incumbent upon them, and they can pretend that this is not important because it doesn't fit into their narrative, and they will continue to try to support the Biden Harris ticket, which is perfectly fine. It's a democracy and they should do that. But if they fail to bring these issues up and stand with the community's interest, then it's futile on their part to even talk about these issues.
So that you had one more thing that you had picked, and maybe you can talk a little bit about it. It's along the same lines. And again, it's incumbent upon the newly elected, tentatively elected, whichever way you want to call it, ticket to actually talk about this. Why did you pick this one? Please tell us about it.
Well, this is actually the gentleman Khalid Baidoun who tweeted this is a known Muslim Brotherhood activist. He gets funded from Qatar, and is very influential amongst left liberal circles. So the fact that they are moving in this direction and trying to demonize any Hindu identity in America would be something that needs to be brought to the notice of the people. And especially this is something that, again, people who voted and supported, which is most of American Hindus, the Biden Harris ticket, they should bring it up with their lawmakers, their leaders, especially Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And they need to mention that, look, this kind of hatred will not work, and the community will not vote for these people anymore if they allow this kind of hatred to pass through in the guise of making Islamic groups happy in their political, and using them as a political tool. So I think this needs to be called out, and Democrats need to work towards isolating and eventually expelling these kinds of people from the influence list of people in the leadership positions of the Democratic Party.
So that you made a statement, and I just want to make sure that when you said that it's based on something, because we want to make sure that we have accurate information. You said that Noreen Akhtar is funded by Qatar. Have you?
No, no, not Noreen Akhtar. I said Khalid Baidoun
Oh, Khalid Baidoun.
is supported and has funding from Qatar, because the universities where he is employed and from whose pulpit he operates receive funds,
Which
receives
university is that? So
from
just
University of California system.
okay.
So they receive fund from Qatar.
Do you
And
know that he is himself funded out of a grant from University of California? Sorry, Qatar, because University of California gets grants from all over the world and including America. So I just want to make sure that when we say something like that, we have enough to back up that he himself has gotten funding from Qatar.
he does.
Okay.
And I can ask people who want to challenge me on that, can come and challenge me on that.
Okay. So I'm sure that
It is my responsibility to prove it, take up the challenge. It's not Hindu Pact's responsibility. I'm saying this as a
okay.
speaker
I
on
just want to make sure that we can back up what we say, and I'm glad you do, because these are the things that we need to expose. And I just want to make sure that we have that when you said that you have some material that you can show that he is being actually funded. Khalid Baidoun is actually funded by a grant from Qatar.
I won't say by a grant specifically, that not that technical term, but yes, he's funded from Qatar.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Utsoda. And Utsoda, once again, because it's Diwali and we have to do, and we usually do a Hindu Seva Act of the Week. And today, as part of the Hindu Seva Act of the Week, and it's Diwali, I want to recognize all the good work that temples in America have done for the last year. We kind of mentioned COVID-19, but it's just not COVID-19, right? In a difficult time like this, when temples that depend on people actually coming into the facility and putting the money in the collection bin and funding the priests and funding the facilities based on the money that is coming in, you can imagine the kind of difficult times that mandirs are going through when they are not having enough collection. And despite of all of that, they continue despite of difficulties, they continue to employ the priests, they continue to fulfill the spiritual needs of the Hindu community. And I think all the Hindu community, all the Hindu communities should uh, you know should thank their temples, that not only they have uh, they have sustained the dharma within their community where they operate, but also they have they have fulfilled every expectations that we as Hindus would have. And just not just Hindus, right? Temples don't single out Hindus to serve. If temple has a soup kitchen, or temple has meals, or temple has collection for winter jackets, it's a temple is serving the entire community where they are located. And I really want to take a minute on this Diwali season to really, in the difficult times that temples are going through, they are supporting the priests who are the mandirs, they are supporting their community, and they're showing the rest of the world how Hindu seva bhav, the feeling, and there's no real way of translating the word seva. The best we can do is selfless service. They basically are showing to the community what selfless service should look like. And your thoughts?
So I think, as we discussed before, the temples have done risen to the occasion. They have done tremendous amount of work, and despite all the economic hardships they're facing, as you noted, and it's been really hard. It's been almost a year now that they have been going through this economic hardship, but they have risen to the occasion and they have done a fantastic job. So absolutely, there is no way to, there's no other way but to commend them, and give them, the community needs to come further out and support them economically so that they can continue to do what they're doing.
Right. Um, Thank you, Utsoda. I think we are at the end of the show. Interesting as always, and I think we should have more shows where we have more vigorous debate among us, and we challenge each other. Because now we are doing this for 29 weeks, and if we don't challenge each other, then we don't go to the next level. So I think let's have topics where we can have vigorous debate among us and have people call in and participate in that debate.
I'm all for it. I'm all for it, and I think
I don't know if I can match your intellectual capacity, but I'll bring something to the table.
hey, we all learn from each other, and there is every day I'm learning something new from you all, and hopefully I am also being useful. So let's keep it that way.
Thank you. So once again, this is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pact, which is an initiative of World Hindu Council of America. And Utsav Chakrabarti is the executive director for Hindu Pact. And I am Ajay Shah. I am the executive vice president for World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA. We come live every Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern. And once again, follow us on Twitter at Hindu Pact. Follow Hindu Lounge at The Hindu Lounge on Twitter. And our Facebook page is facebook.com/vhpamerica.org. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/vhpa videos. Please subscribe, please like, please follow Hindu Pact and World Hindu Council of America. Thank you. Have a very happy Diwali and Happy New Year. And we look forward to meeting you again next week. Thank you again, and namaste.
Namaste, everybody.